that apply to me, mine?
No, because of the loan amount. That loan amount was for 200 or better.
Is it a lock-in fee?
No.
No.
No. No. It's just best efforts delivery. You know, they can't lock and float and go somewhere else.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd get penalized.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining
Good
us.
morning.
I'd like to tell you about a gentleman who's achieved great results in the real estate industry. John has the following accreditations: APR, GRI, CRS, but complains he has no MONEY after his first year in real estate. In 1991, John started his career in real estate. A short time later, he was Rookie of the Year for his office. In 1992, John won a gold medal in Massachusetts Taekwondo State Championship, which qualified him to compete nationally, where he had an opportunity to try out for the United States Olympic team. In 1994, John closed 63 transactions. In 1995, 81 transactions. In 1996, he closed 90 transactions in just 9 months, with a 7% on each listing.
Good show.
7%. Incorrect. The year after that, John became sales manager and then senior vice president for one of the country's largest real estate companies, where he was company's top recruiter. He also had a phenomenal opportunity to work as a professional speaker, sales trainer, and then director of North America's largest and most result-getting real estate training company, Floyd Wickman Courses. John is currently a regional manager and continues his passion in helping others achieve success in their business. So I'd like to welcome John Moore.
Oh, hey!
Let's give Tracy for reading that. I didn't give her anything. Thank you for reading it exactly the way that I wrote it. You know? So that's great. Thank you very much. And you were good under pressure. That was great. At the last minute, I asked her to do that as a favor, so that worked out well. All right, so how are you all doing today?
Good. Good.
You look good. You look happy. You look excited. Today we're going to talk about the secret of successful selling in real estate. And this is the first in a series of workshops that we're going to be putting together. And yes, if you haven't signed that sheet, please do. That'll be for your certificates. And I'm going to talk about why so many people in this industry are struggling. You know that 70% of the people that are in the business today will not be in the business in 3 years. And nearly half of the people that get into the business quit within their first year. This industry has a higher attrition rate than the insurance industry. You know? and there's a reason why. And the reason is they don't know the secret to successful selling. The good news is, after this session, you will, right? And before we get into the seminar, I want to personally thank each and every one of you for being here, because you could have been anywhere you wanted to today, but you chose to come here. You chose to make an investment in your mind, and by doing that, you're also making an investment in your business. And I, for one, want to applaud you for that. And my one applause would sound kind of weak if I did it by myself. So could you join me in giving you an applause? I appreciate it. And okay, now, how many of you are commission salespeople? Raise your hand if you're a commission salesperson. Right? All of you. Okay, good. You know, 70% of the agents are struggling in this business, and I learned why. Sometimes you can learn things just by looking at real estate agents, looking at their business cards, because you can see on their business cards they have words like marketing specialist, real estate consultant, realtor, marketing specialist, all these different titles on business cards. Accredited buyer representative, certified residential specialist. But what we're not focused on is the one title, and that is the one thing that you have to be in order to be successful in real estate, and that is a salesperson. And some people associate the word salesperson with things that aren't really positive. And so some people get into real estate saying, well, I don't want to be in sales. Go ahead, laugh. Right? I don't want to be in sales. I just like homes, or I like people. But real estate is largely a sales business. And so one of the secrets to success in real estate is that you have to know something. You have to know that you have to be many things in this industry. But to be successful in real estate, you have to be a salesperson. And if you go to your second page, I'd like to ask you to fill that in on that first line there. Now, let's go to the first page for a moment where you see the secret of successful selling. We have a little mini quiz here for you. We're going to do a little countdown from 5 to 1. Question number 5. Most people entering in the real estate business have A, high expectations, B, low expectations, or C, no expectations. A is correct.
I don't know, you had a statistic yesterday, 37% of the 1.3 million realtors didn't sell a house last year. That's a
Absolutely.
person with no expectations to me.
Well, no, they have the
No, they have it.
expectation.
They
They
have
just
it.
didn't get it
High
done.
expectations,
Yeah.
right?
Good
Would people would even
Oh, yeah, they do.
if they didn't have high
Number 4.
Listen to what?
Selling means to serve, to solve problems, to persuade, or D, all of the above. And I'll give you a hint. Whenever the option is all of the above, that's usually the answer. Number 3, what happens to 7 out of 10 real estate people in their first 2 years?
Quit.
They quit. A, they do fine, B, they quit, or C, they become brokers, or D, they become broke. That was me. I became broke my first year in real estate, as Tracy mentioned in the intro. Which is the most effective 2-word closing question? Sign here. B, any questions, or C, ready now?
Ready now is the only question. Ready now.
The answer is B, any questions?
Oh,
I forgot the question mark.
Yes. Number 1, listings are real good for you, like Wheaties, right?
End of the game.
B, hard to get. Or C, the name of the game. C, the name of the game. Oh, you guys are good. This is a good group. I like it. Okay. Now, let's go to your next page, if you would, please. I have a little bit of a handout, a little fill-in item here. Second item down, you need to learn the art of persuasion. You need to learn the art of persuasion to be good in real estate. Much of the information, in fact, almost all the information I'm going to share with you today comes from Floyd Wickman himself in Floyd Wickman courses. I give Floyd he's a genius, and I give him all the credit for a lot of the content that I'm going to be sharing with you now and in the future.
John, what's his name again?
Floyd Wickman.
Floyd Whitman?
Wick. W-I-C-K-M-A-N. First name is F-L-O-Y-D. I would also highly encourage you to go on his website, www.floydwickman.com. And if you were to buy one thing and one thing only to make an investment in your mind, I would suggest you invest in what's called a dialogue dictionary. And there are probably 1,000 or more different dialogues that you can learn in terms of what to say and how to say it in this industry. Absolutely the best investment you could ever make. I'm going to talk about that a little later as well in terms of investing. The next part of the handout here says Floyd averaged 87 listings a year for 7 years. Would you say that's pretty good?
for 7 years, no?
86 averaged.
Oh,
Yeah, 86 listings a year for 7 years. So he averaged,
I'd say that's
on
pretty
average,
good.
86 a year. Would you say that's pretty good?
Yeah.
That's unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
But Floyd tells his own personal story about how when he first got into business and how he was failing, how he was always that guy that was always working on one deal. In his office, they used to call him the Undertaker because what he used to do is drive buyers in his car until they died before they could buy a home. So his boss went to him one day and he said, look, this isn't working. And he knew that because he wasn't making any money in real estate. So what Floyd did is Floyd went and in 1967, he spent $1,100 for a 9-month course. And someone told me the last time I gave this course that in 1967, $1,100. Today, that would be about $10,000. Does anyone agree with that or disagree with that? Or?
That's probably right.
It's probably right.
Yeah.
So imagine being a real estate agent, failing, and taking $10,000 and investing it into yourself. Right? Imagine that. Was he committed? Yes. See, Floyd had he had the commitment, he had the drive, he had the passion, he had the wherewithal, he had the ability, but he didn't have the words. He didn't have the knowledge. He didn't have the skills of how to persuade and how to help people. Next item down, sell. He needed to learn how to sell. That was the key. He had the desire, but he didn't know how to sell. So what does selling mean? Selling means to serve and to solve problems. It's to serve and to solve problems. Whose problems? Yours? No, theirs, right? Absolutely. Here's what Floyd learned in this course that he took. It was a 9-month course that he graduated from. And in today's value, it would be about $10,000. It took him 9 months to go through the course. And if you ask Floyd, what did you learn? He said, I learned to be in control. How many of you sometimes feel when you're working with a buyer or seller that you're out of control? Raise your hand. I'm raising my hand, right? Sometimes, right? But being in control, and going back to the title of this course, which is The Secret of Successful Selling. The secret to successful selling is being in control, right? But how is it that you're in control? How can you be in control? Knowledge, yes. I'll give you the answer. Right in the beginning of the class, I'm going to give you the answer. Dialogue. Words. Here's another word for it. Technique. Technique. Everyone say that with me. Technique. Right? Knowing what to say, when to say it, how to say it, using the right body language, voice inflection, and most importantly, the right words at the right time. That is the secret to successful selling in real estate. Now, in order to do this, you have to have certain attitudes. I laugh about this, but it's so true, is that few agents will spend a penny on their mind, but they'll spend hundreds of dollars on their hair, right? Some people will spend more money on the outside of their head, right, than they do on the inside of their head. Think about that. Benjamin Franklin said, put coins from your purse into your mind, and your mind will put coins in your purse, right? In your pocket. Training, this is what training does, and that's why I encourage you to be here. I encourage you to be here today. I encourage you to continue to go to these sessions. Is that training gives you the internal confidence you need to win listings and sales. Training gives you the internal confidence to win listings and sales. When you have internal confidence, remember your first listing appointment or your first buyer appointment? Remember, did you feel confident? I didn't. I felt, oh my goodness, anxiety, nervous, right? You could have been in this business for 23 years or 27 years or 35 years, but there's sometimes, in some ways, somebody can say something to you that makes you nervous. And for different people, it's something different. For some of you, it might be, will you cut your commission? For other people, it might be, I only want to give you a 3-month listing. For other people, it might say, well, I want to think it over before I write up an offer on that property. And you don't feel like you're in control. School is never out for the pro. Pros always go to training over and over and over again. In fact, the more training you go to, the more internal what? Confidence you have. Now, do you think you do better in sales when you have internal confidence? Yes or no?
Yes.
Say yes. All right, good. Absolutely, right? So, there are 3 attitudes that you must internalize before you can move forward. In other words, I can't just stand up here today and say, okay, here's the secret of successful selling. Know what to say, when to say it, how to say it. Good night. Have a great day. Because that doesn't work. You've already heard that before. You may have heard it dozens of times. So here's what I want to impress upon you today. And by the way, this is a training workshop. I can only, in these sessions, make you aware of what it is that you need to know, but I can't change you. I can't change the way you feel. I can't change the way you think. And I can't make you walk out of here a better agent this morning. Only you can do that. But you have to do it by first making a decision. Number one, you're here. That's an awesome, that says a lot about you. You made the time, energy, and effort and the commitment to be here, to learn, to sharpen your axe, to do better, right? To give you that more of that internal confidence. So let's talk about the 3 attitudes to internalize. Do you have that in your notes?
Yeah, just
It's listed 1 to 3. Okay, great. The 3 attitudes to internalize. Number 1 is you have to change your attitude about selling and being a salesperson. I'm going to talk a bit about this before I give you the 1, 2, and 3. I know some of you started writing in number 1, but and that's okay. It's totally fine. You have to change your attitude about being a salesperson. If I look at any of your business cards, I don't see any of you on any of your cards that has your name and then it has salesperson at the bottom. Why do you think that is? Be honest with me.
Offensive.
It's offensive.
And they
It's negative.
steered us away from it.
They steered us away from
The
it.
car people, right?
Absolutely.
They have
Why
different
else?
logos.
What are some other thoughts that you have? When I say salesperson, what do you immediately think of? What goes?
Car salesman.
Used car. What else?
Full of brush.
Full of brushes.
You think that you're going to be bamboozled.
Right.
You're afraid that you're going to be
Fast
into
You're afraid you're going to be bamboozled, fast talking, and all this. Now hold on to this thought for a second. Think about this. Everything that you just said is in your mind. That's in your mind. So in order for you to move past this, you need to change that internal belief that you have first. And the only way to change it is to exchange it. You follow me? You need to replace that thought with a more positive thought. Okay, so I'm going to give you some things to think about and to dwell on. It's not going to happen in 5 minutes. There's no magic pill here. You're going to have to develop this over time yourself. Maybe you just have to read it over and over again and to develop this. But here it is. Number 1, to serve. A salesperson's job is to serve. Number 2, solve problems. And number 3, write these words down. Honestly and sincerely care about people. You know, here's the bottom line. I have something really big to say about number 3. Honestly and sincerely care about people. You know, there's nothing that you can say or do to hurt anybody if you honestly and sincerely care about people. As long as you honestly and sincerely care about them, there's no selling technique or words or dialogue that you could use to ever offend them, because you have the right intent. You have it in your heart that you want to help them. And here's what is happening. There are people that are silently begging to be led. Most of them are. They need a reason to list with you. You know you're the best with the best company. You know you're the best agent for the job. But they need a reason to push that pen down onto that piece of paper. And that's where you have to use technique, because it's in their best interest that they hire you. It's in their best interest that they purchased that home that they saw that day. Right? That opportunity, you know in your heart, that opportunity may not come by again. So you need to help them take advantage of that. But in order to do that, you need to be a salesperson. Thank you. Right? Now, when you learn, go to the next page if you would. Write these words in. When you learn the words, dialogue, technique, you gain control. When you learn the words, dialogue, technique, you gain control. Now, if you knew the right words, you would be more effective. If you would please write that in, more effective.
I was going to say filthy rich.
Yeah, filthy rich. I like that too. That works for me, sure.
Why does it have to be filthy?
I launder the money.
Okay, next item, I want to share something with you. Now, when I say you need to learn words, dialogue, and technique, there are three different things that there are three different reactions or reasons why people resist and they fight that. There are three different reactions that I've received from salespeople who are in our industry, in our business, who are fighting the words, the dialogues, and technique. You know, sometimes when I say you need to learn what to say and how to say it. Yesterday I shared with you a dialogue on how to handle a commission objection. Some of you read that and said, that's not me. I want to be me. That's what some salespeople say. I want to be me. The 70% of the people that are not doing as well as they'd like to do in this industry right now, they're saying, I want to be me. So I'm going to use my words. And when I use that as an excuse, when I was with my first manager told me, he said, you need to learn the dialogue and techniques. I said, I read those aren't me. I want to be me, I told him. And he looked at me and says, well, look at you. He goes, John, it's not working. What you're doing isn't working. So what I would ask you to do is look at what you're saying and doing right now. Is it working? Are you working more hours than you want to? Are you selling as many homes as you'd like to within the time frame that you're working?
No.
Would you like to be selling more?
Yes.
In less time?
Yes.
This is a great group. You guys are on track. This is good. Now,
It's hard, but we're doing it.
yes. Thank you. It's appreciated. Now, out of all the people in the industry, okay, one out of 10 of all the people in real estate are what I would call a natural. These are people that are what I would call natural salespeople. They have the type of voice, when they're speaking normally, is completely and totally unintimidating. They have the type of look on their face, even when they're sad, this is how they look. You know, I have this vision that when they're sleeping, this is how they look when they're sleeping. 1 out of 10 have the natural ability to be really good in sales without learning the words, the technique, the dialogue. They're just naturals at it. But here's what I want to caution you on. If you're like me and you're one of the 9 out of 10, if you're like me, then and you don't have that natural born ability, be careful who you model yourself after. Because you can't always get away with what other people get away with. You know, I have a couple of stories that I can tell you in regard to this that I think are pretty powerful. There's back when I was a real estate agent, there was a woman that I worked with. A salesperson, thank you. Thank you very much. Back when I was a salesperson, by the way, I'm still a salesperson. I'm just in a different role now. And there was this woman that worked in our market area, and she was a sweetheart. Everybody loved this woman. But this is how she would show a house. And I can tell you that when I saw, I knew she was incredibly successful. And I thought to myself, wow, if I could just watch and model her and do what she does, then I could be successful like her, right? Makes sense. Modeling, you know, you hear that a lot when people want to become successful, they want to model other people. So what happened was, I went on a showing with her, and they were, it was my listing. I had to show this listing. It was an accompanied showing. And of course, when I showed a listing, it was I just got out of the way, but I wanted to hear what she was doing and how she was doing it. Very successful agent. No assistant, closing 40 transactions or more a year, okay? She walks in the house, a young couple, and she walks in, and she has a Danish accent, and I'm probably going to screw it up a little bit, so bear with me. So, and she walks in, and she looks at the couple, and she says, "Go ahead, go." She looks at me, she says, "Hey John, how you doing?" I said, "Good." So we're talking a little bit back and forth. I'm thinking to myself, she's not showing the house, she's not selling the house, letting the house sell itself, right? So they come around, they look at the house, she looks at them, she says, "So what do you think?" And they look at each other and they go, they don't really say anything. She says, "Diane, come over here." She grabs Diane by the hand, pulls her over to the kitchen sink, and makes her stand there and forces her to look out the window. She says, "Look at this. See this yard out here? Your kids could be playing in that yard while you're doing the dishes, while your lazy husband's sitting on the couch over there doing nothing with his feet up reading the newspaper. Yeah, Bob, I'm talking about you." And I'm just sitting there going, I could never get away with that in a million years. And I thought to myself, you have to be careful who you model yourself after. There's no way that I can get away with that. There was another gentleman that I used to work with, and he actually became a good friend of mine. And what would happen was he was very successful. He also would close anywhere from 30 to 40 transactions, depending on the year. And he's still very successful in the real estate industry today. But he had a style about him that was unlike anyone else. He had a very strong Greek accent, and sometimes it was even more really difficult for people to understand him. So he would get on the phone. He loved new real estate agents. Loved new real estate agents. And what he would do is he'd have them come up and sit next to him at his desk. And he had his desk set up here, and he had a chair right here, and he had it all set up. And in front of his desk, he had a bunch of words, scripts, dialogues, techniques, all plastered in the front of his wall. And he had a headset, and he would get on the phone, and he would read the scripts and the dialogues and the words to prospect for sale by owners, sphere of influence, just listed, just sold, for sale by owners, you name it, and he would make the calls. So he got extremely good at this. And there was one gentleman who sat behind him that ended up leaving and quitting the business because this gentleman was trying to model himself after the person that was sitting in front of him. Right? So the gentleman that's sitting in front of him, who has a very strong accent, even though he had the words and the dialogue and all this, eventually he'd get off track, which I don't recommend you do, but because of his style, he got away with it. You know the alternative choice closing technique? Do you? Don't you? No? Alternative choice closing technique is, would you like me to come by at 6 or would 7 be better? And either one they pick, you win, right? This was his technique. We would spend 2.5 hours practicing, rehearsing, and drilling the alternate choice closing technique. You know, would come over at 6 o'clock, would 7 be better, blah, 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 and we go on and on and on, right? Jim would get up to his desk, he'd get on the phone, he says, "Can I come over or what?" You know? And people would say, "What?" And he'd say, "I'll be right there." And he'd hang up the phone, he'd go out on the appointment. So what Jim used to do with the new people is he would say, "I guarantee," he says, "will you buy me?" He said, "Have you tried calling?" He said, "Yeah, I've tried calling. I haven't had much good success with it. And I've called some people. It's not really working." And Jim would say, "Well, sit down. You can listen to me call, and let's make a little wager. If I get an appointment within the first 10 phone calls, you buy me lunch. How's that?" And they would say, "Yeah, go for it," right? Okay, great. With literally, honest to God, within 4 to 5 calls, Jim would get the appointment. Now, I couldn't do that. I can't model myself after Jim, right? So be careful who you model yourself after. Some people have success because they're in this category right here, all right? So for everyone else, you have to learn what to say, how to say it, when to say it, okay? Now, so that's one reason that I get. Some people say, well, I want to be me. Another reason why people resist and reject and try to talk themselves out of it is they say, I don't want to sound like a con artist, right? I don't want to sound like a con artist. Listen, right in your notes, it says the difference between a pro and a con is what? I said it earlier. Intent. Intent. Listen, a professional and a con artist both use technique. Right? It's just one is looking out for the best interest of the person that they're with, and the other person is only looking out for their best interest. You follow me?
Yep.
So I don't want to sound like a con artist. And some of you affiliating the word salesperson with con artist, it's already embedded into your subconscious mind. You have to push it out in order to move past this, in order to adopt these feelings and techniques, because for years people have been telling you, if you've been in the business for years, to learn the dialogues, learn the technique, but you've been resisting it. And here are some of the reasons why. Overcome those reasons, and you can be successful and be able to move on. You know, having the right words is like having a reflex. Like when somebody says, when somebody says to me, you know, will you cut your commission? And instinctively, I just, as a reflex, I just say, no. It's just a reflex. Now, if they press it, I can come up with other dialogues. That's a good one, by the way. If you want to write that one down, you can. It's called the No Way Jose technique, and it works pretty well.
You have to smile when you say that?
You do. You have to smile, and you notice the delivery, the dialogue, you know, that I use with this. I say, no. And I laugh, kind of like, silly that you would even ask, like, type of thing. Let's role play that. Ready? I'm going to ask you. You reply back to me, and you give me the dialogue, okay? Will you cut your commission?
Of course not.
Normally, honest to goodness, I have to do that like 3 times in order for a group to really do it well. You guys did an awesome job. I'm like pleasantly
It
surprised.
came from the heart.
Very good.
It was the intent.
You all had the tonality down, you had the facial expression down, you had the smile down. I think you're all in 1 in 10 over there. I think you're all number 1. And so, you know, when I think about reflex, I think about this story. A man's boss told him that he had to relocate to Edmonton, Alberta. And the gentleman said, Edmonton, Alberta? The only thing in Edmonton, Alberta is lewd women and hockey players. And the boss said, and the boss said, I'll have you know my wife is from Edmonton, Alberta. He said, oh, what team does she play on? That's reflex, okay? That's reflex. Here's the third reason why people resist dialogue, technique, and words, okay? They say, I have a bad memory. I have a bad memory. Everybody, work with me. Help me out. You ready? Happy
Birthday to you.
How do you know that song?
Repetition. Because we have a
Over
good memory.
and over, because you have a great memory, absolutely. Over and over and over again, right? Now, if you could learn that song, or many other songs, couldn't you learn what to say?
Yes.
When somebody gives you an objection or a technique or something that they're using against you, here's what is beautiful about real estate. There are a limited number of objections that you're going to get from buyers and sellers. They're limited. They're not out to infinity. So you can learn what to say in regard to all of the objections that you come up against. Okay? Now, so today I'm going to teach you I'm going to share with you today what Floyd affectionately calls his 5 money makers. Okay, I promised you in that brochure, when we talked about the seminar, I was going to give you 5 money makers to help you move forward. Now, this is one that you would use if you're confronted with an objection. Okay? Let me give you an example. Let's say you ring the doorbell. They open the door, you walk in, you say hi, and the first thing they say to you, Becky, is, we're not going to list with you today. Here's what you say. You ready? Write this down. No problem. No problem.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
For anything.
For anything, absolutely. For anything. You know what's funny is that a lot of people do come back and tell me stories of how they use these in their personal lives with their spouses. With their keep that in mind. If you keep that in mind, this gets funnier. This gets funnier. This gets better. Now,
Oh, me too.
second moneymaker number 2. You ready? This is when, let's say you're looking through a property and it's a listing opportunity. And Rose, you're over there, you're looking at the property, and you look up in the ceiling, you see a stain in the ceiling. And Rose, she's good. She doesn't say anything. She just looks at it and goes. And what does the seller say?
Should I
Should I paint that?
Is that a problem?
And Rose, because she's a pro, she says, I would. Yeah, I would.
Try that with your husband.
Yeah, right.
And then you'd be painting the ceiling.
Yeah. You're right.
I have.
Yeah.
But only for very close friends.
So let's role play this together. Let's use it in terms of a buyer. Buyer says to you, should I make a full price offer? You say,
I would.
you know, sometimes less is better. The average agent goes, blah, 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 according to the market analysis and the CMA and the blah, 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 and if he loses property, blah, 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 and they just keep talking and talking and talking and talking. Next thing you know, they change the subject. And they're talking about, you know, and the buyer looks at their watch and says, oh, geez, I've got bowling tonight. I'm going to have to run. And you've talked yourself right out of a sale. If you would just simply say those two words, I would, you'll make, with these 5 money-making dialogues, I guarantee you, if you use them, you'll make at least an additional $10,000 this year, just by using these techniques alone. Guaranteed. Number 3.
John,
Yes.
let me just back up for 1 second.
Sure.
What if I wouldn't?
Yeah,
What do you
if I
mean?
wouldn't?
Should I make a full price offer? My opinion is, no, you shouldn't make a full, you know, what if my honest answer, you know, if we're honest and sincere?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that goes back to what we said earlier. Number 3, honestly and sincerely care about people. But what I'm saying is that that's an exception, right? There are exceptions to everything. But absolutely, positively, if you know they're going to lose their property if they don't put a full price offer on it, and you know in your heart that this is their home. I mean, this is the one they've been looking for. And they come back to the office, and the wife is saying, you know, look, honey, we got to get this house. This is the one. We're getting it. And he says, you know, don't worry, maybe we should put in a low price offer, you know. You know, should we put in a full price offer? And you would say, I would. Yeah, absolutely. It's going to always default to do what's in their best interest. Okay. Now, what if you're working as a seller's agent? And they say, should I put in a full price offer? But you know that somebody put in an offer for less before and it got accepted. What should you say? I would. Yeah. Right? Because you're representing who?
The seller.
The seller on the property. Absolutely.
We don't do
You're-
seller though.
What's that?
We don't do
We
seller
don't.
registration.
No. I'm just trying to make it.
Okay.
Thank you. So use the point I would. Saying less is better. That reminds me of this little saying. Remember this: 10,000 Philistines were killed with the jawbone of an ass, and just as many listings and sales are lost with the same weapon. Best closing question ever. Use this after presenting you, your company, or the price. For instance, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, this is everything, you know, that I've taught you about me. This is what I've done. These are the training classes that I've attended. And you explain everything there is to know about you, what you've done in your prior career, what makes you such a great real estate agent, the difference between a realtor and a non-realtor. And then you just look at them and you say these 2 words. What are they? Brenda said it. Any questions? Any questions? Let's say you talk about your company. These are all the benefits of working with Carlson GMAC and our company. This is our marketing plan. This is what we're going to do to market and sell your property and how to get your home sold. And these are all the massive benefits of working with our company. Any questions? Yeah, I have a question. What about that lockbox? Having that lockbox on the front. You handle the objection, talk about the lockbox, either agree or disagree, and then after that's settled, what do you say?
Any questions?
Any questions? Yeah, what about a sign? I'm not real too crazy about having a sign in my front yard.
No problem.
No problem. That's a good.
I would.
No problem. I would put a sign in my house. Any other questions? So my point is that in saying, in using that often, using that on a regular basis. See, some of you have been to real estate seminars and training classes, and they've taught you these long dialogues of closing techniques, and then you never quite know exactly when to use it or how to use it, or it never seems to be the right time or the place to use these dialogues. And but with this, it's simple, it's easy. It's only 2 words.
I would have said I would, and I would tell them why I would.
Yes, perfect. And then after that, now you can say,
Any questions?
any questions?
Yeah.
And see, what you do is you just keep asking that same question over and over and over again until they have no questions. There are no longer any questions. When there are no longer any questions, what is the natural thing for them to do?
Sign.
Yeah. And I've had people use this technique and not properly have the form on the table, not have a pen in their hand, and do all those things. And the buyer, it or the seller, will turn to them and say, "So what do I do next? Where do I sign? How do I do this?" Only because they mastered one dialogue, and that is any questions. I guarantee you that this will make you at least $10,000 over the next year or more, just by using that alone. You can all think back over the last 12 months where you've lost a sale, right? I can, you can. If you think hard enough, you think, I could have grabbed them. I missed that golden opportunity. Use these dialogues and it'll work. Now, use this if they're ramble or they're vague. Like, for instance, if they say to you, if you ask them the question, well, do you want to sell your house? And they say, well, I guess. Here's what you're going to ask them. Is that a yes? So, Brenda, let's role play. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you, do you want to sell your house? And you go, well, I guess. Okay. Well, now, listen to how this works. So, Brenda, do you want to sell your house?
I'm not sure this is a good time.
You,
What?
Oh, wait a minute, I'm the agent?
no, I apologize. You were writing while I was talking.
You don't fit well in here.
It didn't work. All right. If you're gonna ramble or be vague, you're not gonna just totally blow me off. I would have never even gone to your house. I would have never even showed up on the appointment. That was the case. You're tough. Thank you. No, this is good. So just say, you just use the words, well, I guess. You say that, okay? Ready? Brenda, do you want to sell your house?
I guess so.
Is that a yes?
Yeah, I guess.
Sounds like a yes to me. Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure.
Now, you see where I got to her? That's number 5. Are you sure? Do you see how I brought her there? Just by using these dialogues? Is that a yes? Do you want to sell your house? I guess so. Is that a yes? Yeah. Are you sure? Yes. Did you hear Brenda say that?
Yeah, but what if
They
they
go
say
back to any
no?
question.
If they say no, you can simply ask why. Because what I would ask you is, why are you there at the house, meeting with them if they don't want to sell their home? So I would ask, well, why am I here? Like, why did you bring me out here? Why am I giving you a listing presentation if you don't want to sell your home? So if they say no, you might not have pre-qualified them on a motivational basis before you went out on the appointment. So what I would do is, what do I do before I go on a listing appointment? What can you tell that I do?
Ask questions.
I ask questions, and one of them is, do you want to sell your home? Just because someone calls you and says, I want a market analysis, doesn't mean they want to sell their home. Sometimes they just want to get an abatement on their taxes. Sometimes they want to negotiate with their future ex-spouse, right? So, and they just want to know. Yes.
If you get a call, and I get these all the time, can you come and look at my house and tell me what pricing and blah blah blah. I'm having 3 other companies come in.
Yes.
Then, okay, what's the dialogue once you get there when they say, I've got 2 more people coming after you. You were terrific, but I'm seeing 2 more people,
Right.
Wednesday and next Friday,
Because they're not going to sign.
There are
So
2.
you're
Well,
asking
that's
us to
right. You want to. How do you close them if they have 2 more people coming in
Right.
after you?
Correct.
There's a technique and there's a tool that you need to use.
Okay.
Do I can I share with you now?
Yes.
Yeah.
A gun.
And a gun. Mark says. I like your style.
She has too many
Ron's,
hockey players.
Ron's there is, hey, when they pull a knife, pull a gun, right? Here's what you do. Before you go out on an appointment, you should all have this ready and prepared for yourself. You should have you and your competitors. And here's what you're going to put together. is called the comparison flow chart. And you should have this in your listing presentation, and you should take it out. Feel me on this now, you ready? If you need it. You don't just take it out for no reason. You take it out if you need it. And here's how it works. What you do is you put your company's name up here, and your 2 or 3 or 4 largest competitors, okay? And what you do is you put a list on the left-hand side of all of the marketing services that you are going to perform for them, or that anybody can perform for them. So I just put MLS, brochure box, home warranty, and I put this down too. At the very end, you come up with like 25, 30 things you come up with for this. If you're interested, you really are going to do this, email me, and I will email you a sample of a comparison flow chart, and you can just adjust it. So it'll give you a lot of great ideas you can use for marketing. And what you do is you go down here and you make an X on all of these. Okay? And you look at the competitors, and you go to the bottom and you add it up and you say 4, 3, 1.
Now, you say put your largest competitors, is it the ones that are interviewing? Or
No.
Well, you're not going to know who they're interviewing
Yeah.
when you make this. So what you would
But
do
aren't
is you
you
say your
suggesting
largest
to them?
competitors.
Yeah.
And it brings up a good point. And you say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I'm glad, I understand that you are interviewing 2 other companies for the job of marketing your home, and you've called me in first. And let's say you couldn't get in last, okay, you couldn't be the last one, or they throw this at you as a surprise. And let me ask you a question. What are the 2 other companies that you're talking to? And they say, well, we're talking to On Track Realty. And I said, On Track Realty. Okay, well, what I did, and you slowly pull this out of your presentation book, and you say, I prepared what's called a comparison flow chart that compares our company to other companies in the marketplace. And what I did is I took the top 3 to 4 producing real estate companies in the marketplace, and unfortunately, On Track Realty isn't even on the list. So let's say that if you were to interview the top 3 to 4 real estate companies, and I recommend it's a good idea, what you want to do is you want to do this. Would you agree with this premise? Now listen to my words very carefully. Would you agree with this premise? That you want to hire an agent based on the marketing services that they're going to provide you. And let me ask you this question, if you're not sure about the answer to that. Doesn't it make sense for you, the homeowner, to list with the company that's going to do the most to get your home sold, yes or no? How will everybody answer that question?
Yes.
Yes.
3%.
Right? So based on the fact that you want to have all the marketing services available to you and you want to list with a company that's going to provide you with the most services, I'm going to save you a tremendous amount of time so you don't have to meet with those other 2 agents. And what I've essentially done is I've done your homework for you, and I've prepared what's called a comparative market analysis. As you can see, Carlson GMAC, we do all these 34 items, and ABC does 33 of those items. They do the same thing that we do, but they don't have me. So that means we've got one more than them, right? And you smile. Odds are you're going to have a lot more than the next nearest competitor, of course. And then XYZ, well, of course, they have less, and WHY, they have less, and On Track Realty, well, they're not even on the list. They didn't even make it in the top 3 real estate companies in the market area. So what you have to ask yourself is you don't want to, I understand you want to interview different real estate companies, but I can save you a lot of time just by hiring me today. As a matter of fact, I can imagine that it's probably going to be difficult to make that call. Yeah, John, I've already promised these people that they could come out to my house. One of them has already been out once, and he said he was going to do a lot of work, and that, he didn't want me to cancel, so he could go back and show me everything he was going to do and how he was going to do it. And I really feel like I owe them that favor. And I said, well, listen, I don't mind. I'll do it. I mean, what you can do is tell me who the agent is. I'll call him personally, and here's what I'll do. I'll make sure that they're the first person. Once it goes into the multiple listing service, I'll make sure they're the first person to know, so that if they have any buyers, they can show it first right away. And I'll let them down easy, and I'll just explain to them that I twisted your arm, I made you sign the contract, and that I got the listing, but they'll get the next one some other time down the road. And don't worry about them; they will still be able to sell the property. Okay. and so, you know, this is what you do. Now, let me ask you a question. Yes.
I remember some words that an agent said to me. She told her customer this, and I'll never forget it as long as I live. She said, "Don't worry about Roberta. I'll take care of Roberta." And she really did. She screwed me royally.
Oh.
But I mean, that was her words. If this other person said, "Well, what about Roberta?" "I'll take care of Roberta."
I've had that 2 or 3 times.
Yeah,
So
I don't
I
like-
wouldn't use
Well, listen,
that.
how do you think I learned it? Somebody used it against me.
Yeah.
Somebody actually shared this with me. It was the actual agent. And they said, "Hey, John, you know the Robinsons over on Brookline Street?" I said, "Yes." I even remember the names and everything. He said, "Yeah." He goes, "I just listed their house." And we're in front of a group of other agents. And I said, "Oh, like, okay." They said, "Yeah, they said they knew you." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, I mean, they have my," he goes, "Yeah, they have your business card on the magnet on the refrigerator." I'm like, "All right." I'm like, "Where's this going?" He said, "Well, when I was meeting with them, they said they were going to call you, but I told them that, don't worry, John and I work together all the time. I'll let them know." And everybody laughed, and it was funny. I'm just sitting there going, wow. And it worked.
Exactly.
So, you know what? It works. You know, sometimes it works for you,
That's
sometimes
very
it
good.
works
I
against
work
you.
with her or him all the time. You
Yeah,
know,
we work together on
we'll
a
work
regular
it out
basis.
if they have a buyer.
We're constantly co-broking. Our company works with cooperates with their company. But here's the thing. If you want the best of both worlds, if you want the best of both worlds, show them that you're going to do more. And by the way, if you come up with a lower number over here, what do you have to do?
Don't worry.
Don't show them.
You need to
Invent something else.
yeah, you need to come up with more things to do.
Something else.
Separate one. and
What
do
they're
it.
going to bring up though is that, well, the other companies, they're only going to be charging 4%.
Oh, that's a whole other seminar.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
they're going to bring that up, yeah.
Yeah, well, I can see why they would charge less. Look what they're providing you.
Yeah, they don't need some
You know,
phones.
what's more important is what you're going to net in your pocket. And would you agree that if I could, now, would you agree with this premise, okay? More marketing services equal more prospects. In other words, the more we do to market a property, the more people will be interested. Would you agree with that, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Now, let me ask you this. If you're having an auction, do you get more money when there are 2 people there or 200 people there?
200, yeah.
Oh, so the more prospects equals more money then, right? Is that what you're telling me? See, you're telling me. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
You're telling me that more prospects equal more money for you in your pocket. Because if we get enough people interested, we could even create an auction-like atmosphere and have 2 people bidding on your home at the same time. If you're really concerned, you know, I charge 7, they charge 4. If you're really concerned about that 3% difference, why don't we do this? Why don't we add 3% to the sale price, have me work that much harder to get you that amount of money, and I'll get the property on the market. You'll have a full-blown marketing program on your property, and I'll be able to net you more money in your pocket. Because based on their marketing plan, you might not even get a buyer on the property. Does that make sense? Any questions?
No problem.
No problem. No problem. Same here. Okay, great. So you see, now listen, gang. Follow me. Yesterday, somebody said to me, "Yeah, John, why don't we take you out on the appointments with us, right?" Well, listen. How did I learn this stuff? Going on appointments. I practiced, drilled, and rehearsed on a regular basis. The first year I managed, we got together as a group, not the whole office, but those who were producing less than 12 homes a year. It was an office policy that we all get together in a room similar to this size, and at 8 o'clock in the morning until 8:45, we would practice, drill, and rehearse our scripts and dialogues. All of us. We had flashcards, and we would just read them to each other. And they'd read them back, and we'd read them to each other, and we'd read them back. Every morning. And then, so let me tell you something. It produced a lot of successful real estate agents who are still in the business today because they now knew their words. One gentleman was Rookie of the Year in the Greater Worcester Board of Realtors, and he had more sales than any other rookie in the entire Board of Realtors. and he was a young gentleman. He was about 20. He was 20 years old at the time, not even old enough to legally old enough to buy alcohol. And he had a face. He looked like he was 12, and he made all these sales. And you know what the biggest comment people used to say to him? The biggest comment used to be, "How old are you? Like, how do you know? How many years have you been? Like, you look too young to know all this stuff about real estate." And he would just smile and say, "I do my homework." And you know what? He'd get the listings time and time again. Despite the fact that he looked like he was 12 years old, they listed with him because he knew what? He knew what to say and when to say it. And people perceived him as a pro, and they were so shocked. Like, how could someone be this professional and this knowledgeable and be that young? It's just bizarre to me. It's amazing. It doesn't make any sense. But he knew the words. He knew the dialogues. Yes?
You know, when you talked to us earlier about salespersons and the images you have, sometimes when you hear the words dialogue and script, you get that same image. But when you were talking about your group getting together at 8 o'clock in the morning and just drilling and drilling, it sort of brought me back to when I was an athlete years ago in college, and we drilled and practiced to get to a level to be proficient. And there was nothing wrong with it. It was just honest, hard work. And I think that's where we need to go to. That dialogue and drilling is honest, hard work to get to where we need to.
What you do in practice, you do in the game.
I like that a lot.
That's right.
That's great. Excellent.
And you're
Excellent.
also not caught off guard. A lot of times with not knowing the right answers because you didn't prepare, you don't know what the question's going to be, where if you're prepared with these 2-word or short phrases, they will come to mind.
Yes.
I went to a Wickman seminar about a year ago, and just using a few of the dialogues really made a difference.
Yes.
You just feel more prepared. It's like nothing takes you off guard,
Right.
which is really important.
Yes. And
You
you're
say dumb stuff when you're caught off guard.
Yeah, absolutely. You do say dumb stuff when you're caught off guard. Absolutely. Thank you for those comments. They're excellent comments, the three of you. They're great, and they're all applicable. It's so true. And when you say sports, I heard someone else use the analogy to this, is that, when the Red Sox go to spring training, what do they practice? Hitting, throwing, catching, and running. What do the little leaguers practice? Same things, right? As the pros do. So if you're a pro, or you want to be more of a pro, or if you're brand new to the business, now you know the secret of successful selling in real estate, knowing the words. Now to learn them, you have to practice, drill, and rehearse. Practice, drill, and rehearse. Taking action. Now, at the end of each workshop, I'm going to ask you to take action. I'm going to give you some homework, okay? And the homework is that this is what I'm going to ask you to do. What I'm going to ask you to do is to just put one brand new dialogue in your brain every week, okay? Just one new dialogue a week in your brain. If you can do that at the end of the year, take a few weeks off, you'll have 49 dialogues burned into your brain every week. At the end of the year, you will be a force to be reckoned with. There is no one that will get by you. Okay? Now, it's time in workshop format, it's time for some interaction. Okay? This is what makes this different than a seminar or a lecture. We call it more of a workshop because we're going to have some interaction of it. Now, what I'd like to do is ask the group, and I'd like you to volunteer, someone who has a story. Some of you actually started to kick this off. And what I'd like you to do is, if you would, contribute a story in which you failed and then you succeeded, much like Floyd did, or I did, and many of us did. So can you give me a story where you failed at something and then you succeeded? And it doesn't have to be in real estate. It could be in sports. It could be anything. Who would like to volunteer that?
Okay, first
Yes,
job
Diane.
in my whole life.
First job in your whole life.
In my whole
Okay.
life. I was still in high school, and it was the summer, and my mother said, "You have to get a job this summer."
Mm-hmm.
So I started calling places, and I called a lawnmower shop because he was looking for an assistant. And he asked me what I knew about lawnmowers. I said, "Well, we've got to push more."
Yeah.
He said, I have these Toros and Lawn Boys and all these things. You have to know about these things. Well, okay, I can learn these things. And now I want someone with experience. So he didn't hire me, and I was very upset about that because I really wanted that. I wanted to, I can do this. So I called him back and I said, look, I said, I may not be experienced, but I said, I'm a fast study and I want the job and I want you to hire me. And he said, all right, come out, see what you can do. So I came and this is an old guy, old lawnmower guy. He's got this shop that is a mess. There's dust, there's dirt all over it. It's just a disaster. He's got all these books and things that are this thick. This is back in the 60s, by the way. And so I looked at his shop and he showed me how to handle things, and I said, okay, when can I start? He said, start right now. So he went back to his back room and I started right then. And he didn't even show me how to use the cash register.
Yep.
But people came in and they wanted things, and he showed me where the books were, and I did okay that day.
Yep.
And I sold parts, and he came back. He said, all right, you can come back the next day. So I did. And then he started to show me how to do business. And so I cleaned his shop, and I got everything organized. By the end of the summer, he didn't want me to go back to school. He wanted me to stay. And I said, no, I have to go back to school. Sorry.
So you started off, you were rejected, you said no, he said no to you.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't take no for an answer, you went in and you completely changed his idea of it to the point where he didn't even want you to leave,
No,
right?
by the end of the summer, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was the best assistant he ever had.
So what was your mindset at the point when you made the decision that you weren't going to take no for an answer? What was your mindset? What was going through your
My mindset was
brain?
that, how could he just reject me like that?
Right, because you knew you could do the job, right? Right. And so that's a good point for all of us. If you know that you can do the job for the seller, you need to sometimes go back and say, look, you need to hire me, and here are the reasons why, right? So that's a great story.
Good story, yes.
So why am I not incorporating it into my business today?
Well, yeah, you should own the
Well,
largest
that's why I
lawnmowers.
asked to make this interactive and ask you to bring up the
Should be
story,
selling
because
lawnmowers.
your story now is going to inspire other people, and it will inspire you too.
All that
Yes,
information.
well, hopefully it will. Let's let it settle in, right? Because it's working on itself into your subconscious mind now. What has been your experience in learning and applying new sales techniques? Who can volunteer a story about that? Yes, Brenda.
John, it's something you said, I think, in a seminar about a year ago. You said something about stop talking so much when you're showing a house and projecting your own opinions onto the buyers. And I used to do that a lot as a new agent. I would just, blah, 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 you know. And I remember one time coming into a kitchen and saying, oh, that color is hideous. And
And
wouldn't
they
you
like
know
it.
that?
I love the
And it was right after
Oh,
you
yeah.
had said, don't talk so much. And it was like, yeah,
Wow.
shut up. You know, do not, you say less.
Yeah.
It's very effective.
And so it works. So that was
How
a
do you
new
like the
technique,
colors?
right?
I had
Yeah.
asked last night,
Don't
I
even
asked
have-
them
you
what
know?
they thought of the wallpaper, because it was dark blue, like very dark blue, and I said, what do you think of the wallpaper here? And
Was
she
it
said,
neat?
oh, I love it. And I said, yeah, it is nice.
Okay, right? Isn't that special, right?
But you have to wait to see what they thought, because
Oh,
I thought
it's-
it was nice, but they could have thought it was hideous.
Very
because
smart.
it's so
Yes,
dark.
Paul.
When they first introduced Trend Graphics, I went to do a listing, and I think I was up against Coldwell Banker, which was, it's pretty similar. And one of the things that I showed them was the Trend Graphics sheets for, again, the area, Long Meadow, and the price range that I thought the house should fall in. And she said, you're the only one who brought anything like that.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a
And,
powerful tool. I like that.
She hired me.
So you know what's interesting that Paul brings up that I absolutely love, and that's a great story, because our competitors have the same tool, but guess what?
I don't use it.
Paul's the only one that used it and brought
Yeah.
it in. You know, I used to talk about the multiple listing service on my appointments. Not because I wanted them to think we were the only company that had it. It's just that I knew I would be the only one talking about it, and they may think that,
Good point.
wow, no one else brought that up. There was a new construction subdivision that they went through 3 real estate agents before they ended up with me. And there were 4 homes left to sell, and they could not sell them. And it was the bottom of the market, and it was tough. And they'd already built these properties, and they couldn't get them sold. And so what I did is I met with the builder and I asked him to go through all the details of what's involved with the construction of the home, and what's this pink stuff and why is that piece of wood green and all this other, and I'd write it all down. And he looked at me in the middle of this and he said, John, that's not really that important because all builders have to put the pink insulation down between the concrete and the pressure treated wood. And so I said, well, what's the benefit of that? He said, well, the benefit is it keeps out drafts and insects from coming into the house and things like that. He said, that's the benefit. I said, oh, okay. I said, I just want to know this. So I wrote it all down, and when I was showing the property, I would explain to the buyers when they would come through and look at the property. I would see, look, come over here and look at this. Let's look at the basement. I said, see that pink foam right there, and you see that green piece of wood, and I'd explain all the benefits as to why that was set up like that. Now, I didn't go in and say that, hey, this is the only builder that does this, and I told him this is code that it does, but I want you to see that he's building his houses to code, and I was showing them this. And because I used those techniques on a lot of things about the property, it actually helps sell the homes. There's a lot of competition in the town, and quite honestly, the competition was priced lower than ours, but he had better quality, and he knew it, but he didn't have anyone selling it. So you have to sometimes, you have tons of tools. And my commitment to you at every sales meeting and at every workshop, I'm going to bring to you more and more tools that you have available to you here at GMAC and at Carlson that some of you don't even know they even exist. There are some things out there that I still need to learn that are out there that are available to you, that you can use out there to give you a competitive advantage. How do you see yourself using the following techniques? No problem, I would. Any questions? Is that a yes? Are you sure? Take a look at those real quick right now. And let me ask you the question, how do you see yourself using those techniques?
No problem.
No problem using those techniques. All right, great. I love it. You're already using them. This is wonderful.
So we're going to try them on our family.
Yeah, I'll talk about your family. Go ahead, absolutely. Give us an example of
Try it on our families, right?
how would you do that? Or like on a family member?
Children.
Children? Can you think of an example?
Can I think of an example? Now?
Yeah. Or anybody think of an example how you might use this
I
with
already
children?
use the no problem on my boyfriend's children.
You do? Yeah. Yeah. No problem.
To save myself, my sanity.
Right. Well, it's a good technique. There's no confrontation, right? It
And they
takes it all
usually
away.
will do whatever, if it's like everything's all over the kitchen or, kitchen's a mess. Geez, I just cleaned it up. Oh, no problem. I'll leave, or that's not a problem, and it's done. They'll go back and do it because you don't really yell at them or. Oh, you don't like corn? No problem. I still give them the corn.
What have you got today?
Every time.
There you go.
It's true.
It's working. That's great. That's a great example. How about other things? How would you see yourself using other items in here? Yes.
I think that when someone asks you the question, should I, they're looking for you to affirm.
Absolutely.
All they want you to do is say, I
Yeah.
would, you know?
Yes.
So I think that's a real easy one to use. I mean, as long as you feel comfortable with using it at the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They're looking for they're looking for some reassurance from you in some way. They want to know, can you, should I be doing this? I would. How do you think in the future, but think about in the past when people have said things to you, how would you use the term any questions? How do you see yourself using that in the future?
I can use those everywhere.
Right.
I mean, like you showed.
Yeah.
Don't you ask a question when you need to gain control as well in the conversation? Isn't that
Absolutely.
You keep them talking.
Yes, absolutely. And you bring up a good point because remember, Floyd learned the secret of being in
Control.
in control. And anytime you lose a sale, it's because you're not in control. Some agents go in and they're interviewing the seller instead of the seller interviewing them because they're in control. They're asking questions.
It also illustrates sincerely caring.
It does. It absolutely. It illustrates sincere caring. Absolutely. It shows that you care. And people don't care what you know until they know that you care. Right? Is that how the saying goes?
Are you sure would also demonstrate that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
If you say, are you sure?
Sure.
That would demonstrate that you care as well. Good point. All right, let's go to the next page. And this is a little advertisement for next week. It's how an agent can guarantee success in real estate. Now you know the secret of successful selling in real estate. Now we need to know how you can guarantee success in real estate. I'm going to cover 2 different formulas that I'm going to give you next week. One of them is called the weekly success formula, and obviously these are things that you're going to do on a weekly basis. And these are formulas used by top producers. Without it, 50% of all agents in the business today are going to be out of the real estate business in 3 years. As a bonus, you will learn about a 3-step career building formula. There's great information for top producers or beginners who want to go to the next level. So as I affectionately write down here, show up and learn more so you can earn more, right? And that's next Friday at 10 a.m. Did you folks learn some good things today?
Yes. Absolutely.
Did you feel like it was worth your time coming here?
Yes.
Yes.
What I would ask you to do is tell everyone who wasn't here that they missed a great show and we had a lot of fun. And I just want to thank each and every one of you for being here today. Thank you very much.
John?
Is there a printout of the thing on the wall?
I'm sorry?
Is there a printout of the thing on the wall?
Is there a what?
Printout.
Yes, it's in your mailbox.
Ew.
It is?
Oh, I have to look in my mail.
Oh,
It's, it was in the handouts in the meeting yesterday.
Oh, okay. So, all right.
School, what's that? Should I get the camera?
Say, what is your commission, or will you take?
That'd be a good thing to put on the back of the business card.